Hey Reddit, throwaway account for obvious reasons. I've been holding all of this in for a while, but I think it's time to get it off my chest. This isn't something I ever imagined myself writing, but life has a funny way of blindsiding you when you least expect it. My wife, Jenna, and I have been married for 6 years. No kids by choice. We're both career driven, me in tech, her in real estate. Our life was comfortable. Not perfect, but stable, or so I thought. About a year ago, Jenna started working more weekends. She said she needed to show more listings and meet clients all over the city. Naturally, she started using Uber more often, less hassle than parking and better for the city traffic. I didn't think twice about it. She would mention a particular driver, Danny, a few times. Apparently, he was chatty, knew shortcuts, always punctual. I remember joking, "Hope you're not replacing me with this Uber guy," and she laughed. One of those hollow laughs that now echoes differently in my mind. At first, it seemed harmless. I trusted her completely. But in hindsight, that's where the story really started. Those damn Uber rides. She started dressing up more, even when she said she had a simple client visit. Lipstick I hadn't seen in years, perfume I thought she stopped using. She would text more frequently, sometimes smiling at her phone during dinner. When I'd ask, she'd brush it off. "Just work stuff? Babe." We started drifting, subtly. She was distant at home, quick to snap, always tired. Sex became rare, then non existent. I chalked it up to stress, work, life, the usual excuses, but deep down, I knew something had changed. I just didn't want to believe what it might be. I'm not sure why I'm writing this now. Maybe I need clarity. Maybe someone out there has gone through something similar, or maybe I just need to scream into the void before I break. This was just the beginning. You won't believe what happened next. The moment the knot in my stomach started to tighten for real, it was a rainy Thursday around 8 p.m. Jenna texted me saying she had a late showing across town. She left the house dressed in this tight maroon dress she hadn't worn in over a year. Heels, full makeup, hair done to perfection. Honestly, she looked amazing, but I remember thinking, who dresses like that to show a two-bedroom condo in the suburbs? Still, I didn't say much. I just smiled and said, "Drive safe." She kissed me on the cheek, not the lips, another change I'd noticed, and left. About 20 minutes later, I got a weird instinct to check our shared iPad. I'm not the jealous type and I'd never snooped before, but something felt off. The iPad was still linked to her Apple ID. Her iMessages popped up. That's when I saw it. A message from someone saved as Danny. Just 5 words. "Can't wait to see you." My heart dropped. I clicked the thread. Most of the earlier messages had been deleted, but a few were still there. "You looked so good yesterday. He suspect anything? I'll park in the same spot behind the bakery." I sat there frozen. My hands were cold. I felt this sick, pulsing heat rise in my chest and a buzzing in my ears. I didn't know what to do. Was I overreacting? Was this some misunderstanding? I waited, stared at the screen, then watched as the little dots appeared. She was typing. On my way. I slammed the iPad shut. That night she came home around 11. Her makeup was smudged and she smelled like cheap cologne, not hers, not mine either. I asked how the showing went. "Oh," she said, not meeting my eyes. "They didn't show up. Waste of time." She poured herself a glass of wine and went straight to bed. I stayed up, sitting in the dark, replaying that message over and over in my head. That was the night I knew. I didn't have proof yet, but I had enough to know my gut wasn't lying, and from that night on, I started paying close attention. Buckle up. Things started to spiral quickly after that night. So after seeing that message from Danny, I couldn't pretend anymore. But I didn't confront Jenna right away. I needed more than a few messages. I needed something undeniable. Over the next 2 weeks, I quietly gathered info. I checked our shared credit card statements. She had been taking Uber rides almost daily, many of them not even during work hours. Always the same driver, same route patterns. One time, she even called for a ride to the gym and didn't come home until nearly midnight. I installed a small voice-activated recorder under the passenger seat of her car. Yes, I know how that sounds. One day she forgot her phone at home and used her work laptop, and I saw another message from Danny on her screen. "Wanna grab takeout and park again like last time?" She replied, "Only if we do more than eat." I wanted to scream, punch a wall, but I stayed quiet. I planned everything out. Then came the confrontation. It was a Friday. It was a Friday. She told me she had a networking dinner downtown, dressed to kill as usual, red dress this time. I kissed her goodbye, told her to have fun, and then I followed her. I parked 2 streets over and watched her meet up with him, Danny. Late 30s, buzz cut, sleeveless hoodie like some budget Fast and Furious extra. He didn't even get out to open her door. She slid into the front seat like it was second nature, like she'd done it 100 times. I followed them. They didn't go to a restaurant. They drove to some dark parking lot behind a strip of closed shops. I parked nearby and waited. 15 minutes passed. Then I walked over to the car, quietly, slowly. The windows were fogged. I saw her head toss back, saw movement, heard her moan his name. Faster. That was it. I knocked hard on the window. Once, twice. Everything stopped. The door flung open, and Jenna shrieked like she'd seen a ghost. "What the fuck are you doing here?" she screamed, clutching her dress. I didn't say a word. I just stared at her, at them. Her hair was a mess, lipstick smeared, her bra still hanging halfway off. Danny looked like he wanted to disappear into the seat. "You lying, cheating bitch," I finally said, voice shaking. "In a fucking Uber? Really?" She got out of the car screaming, "It's not what it looks like?" "Seriously? That's what she went with? Are you high?" "I saw everything," I yelled. Then came the hysterics. She started crying, yelling at me for spying on her, calling me manipulative, saying I was the reason she had to look elsewhere for affection. I laughed. I actually laughed. That's when she slapped me, right across the face, right in that dark parking lot, her dress barely zipped, standing next to the guy she cheated with. I didn't hit her back. I didn't scream. I just turned around and walked away. I already knew what I was going to do next. If you've been following, you know I caught my wife Jenna mid-affair with her Uber driver Danny. In the car, parking lot. Cliche as hell, but somehow it still didn't feel real. I drove home in silence that night, no music, no calls, just my thoughts and the pounding in my chest. She showed up about an hour later, hair wet from trying to clean up in a gas station bathroom. Her words, not mine. She stormed inside, heels clacking like gunshots, slamming her purse on the counter. "You didn't have to humiliate me like that," she snapped. I didn't respond. I poured myself a glass of water and sat at the table. She kept going. "You were spying on me. Like some creep. What kind of husband does that?" That's when I lost it. A husband who trusted you for 6 years while you rode around town screwing a taxi driver. She flinched. Then, like clockwork, came the waterworks. She started sobbing, loud, dramatic, performative, the kind of crying where you watch someone waiting for you to say something. I stayed silent. "I was lonely," she cried. "You work all the time. You don't even notice me anymore." That's when I snapped again. "I don't notice you? You've been leaving the house looking like you're going to a nightclub just to go show apartments and texting your Uber driver like he's your boyfriend." She screamed something about how I never touch her anymore, how she felt invisible, how Danny listened and made her feel alive. I wanted to throw up. I asked her straight out, "How long?" She hesitated. That alone told me everything. "About 4 months," she whispered. But it wasn't just sex. He understood me. Of course he did. They always understand you, right until the Uber ride ends. I went to the bedroom, pulled out a duffel bag. I wasn't going to sleep in the same house as her. Not that night, maybe not ever again. She followed me, crying harder, grabbing my arm, yelling things like, "Don't leave like this. You're blowing this way out of proportion. It was just a phase." A phase. She cheated repeatedly, lied to my face, gaslit me for months. And now I'm the one being dramatic? As I walked out the door, she screamed after me, "If you walk away, don't bother coming back." I paused, looked over my shoulder. That's the idea. I crashed at a friend's place that night, slept like crap, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going back. Now, let's talk about the aftermath. I didn't speak to Jenna for the first 48 hours after the confrontation. No calls, no texts, just silence. I needed space, and frankly, I was still processing it all. But while I was keeping quiet, she wasn't. Turns out Jenna went full damage control mode, texting mutual friends, my sister, even my mother. She painted me as the villain. She told them I was emotionally abusive, that I neglected her, and that she had no choice but to find comfort elsewhere. One of the more theatrical lines. He's been controlling and cold for years. I only stayed with him because I thought he'd change. Absolute fiction. When my sister called me crying, asking what was going on, I told her everything: screenshots, messages, even a short audio clip from the recorder where Jenna told Danny, "Don't worry, he's clueless. He still thinks I'm working late." That shut the sympathy faucet off real quick. Jenna also started spinning lies about Danny, told people he was her friend from college and that I had paranoid delusions and had physically intimidated him. Except Danny didn't go to college with us. He didn't even finish high school, according to the little background check I did. I confronted her via text and said, "You lie like it's a second language. Do you even hear yourself?" She replied with, "You left me no choice. People wouldn't understand unless I made them see the emotional abuse." Right. Me working overtime paying the mortgage and taking her on surprise vacations equals abuse. She even went as far as posting a cryptic story on Instagram. Sometimes people push you so far away, you have to find peace in unexpected places. Comment section full of her friends saying, "Stay strong, queen, and you deserve better." Meanwhile, I was sitting in my friend's guest room with a pit in my stomach and a folder full of divorce lawyer recommendations. That week, I made two decisions: one, lawyer up; two, go no contact except through legal channels. I was done being the quiet, patient husband while she turned our whole life into her twisted reality show. Buckle up because as things started getting real messy once the D word came into play. So, after Jenna's campaign of lies, smear tactics, and Instagram drama, I decided it was time to stop playing defense and start moving forward. I scheduled an appointment with a divorce attorney, an absolute pro named Marissa, who didn't sugarcoat a damn thing. Marissa took one look at the text screenshots, the call logs, the bank statements. Yeah, Jenna had also been sending Danny money via Venmo labeled as dog food, even though we don't own a dog. And she said, "We're going for everything. Spousal support, not a chance." We had no kids, no shared business. The house was in my name. I paid 90% of everything. It was all pretty cut and dry until Jenna got served. And oh boy, the meltdown was Oscar worthy. She called me within 5 minutes of being served, even though I specifically told my lawyer to warn her no contact unless it was about logistics. First thing she did, screamed. Second thing, cried. Third thing, begged. "You can't just throw away 6 years like this. I was confused. He doesn't even mean anything to me." Then a full 180. "You're a fucking monster. You're punishing me like I'm some criminal." Yes, because cheating with your Uber hookup for 4 months, gaslighting me, lying to everyone, and trying to ruin my reputation might just qualify as criminal in the moral sense. She tried to guilt trip me with our shared memories. She brought up our wedding vows. She even said, "You don't understand how hard it is to be with someone as emotionally distant as you." And when I didn't engage, she yelled, "Fine, then I'll take you for everything you've got." Except she forgot one tiny thing. She had already signed a postnup 2 years ago, at her request, no less, when she temporarily quit her job to find herself. And in that postnup, she waived spousal support and we divided the assets based on contribution. She gets a small car and whatever's in her personal account. I keep the house, savings, and retirement. When I reminded her, her voice cracked. That's not fair. Fair, coming from her. That night, she showed up outside Eric's house, where I was still staying, pounding on the door and sobbing. She looked rough, makeup smeared, hair frizzy, mascara tears. She kept yelling, "Talk to me, please. Just give me one chance to explain everything." Eric opened the window and calmly said, "He's not here. And even if he was, he's done. Go home." She stayed outside for 30 minutes, crying, yelling, calling me every 5 minutes, then finally left when the neighbors threatened to call the cops. That was the moment I truly knew this woman wasn't heartbroken. She was just pissed that I didn't let her win. If you've been following along, you know that my wife Jenna cheated on me with her Uber driver, Danny. I served her divorce papers and she melted down harder than I expected. But what came next? Honestly, I couldn't have scripted it better. So let's talk about Danny. Up until this point, he'd been lurking in the background, silent, passive, doing whatever Jenna told him. I didn't confront him directly, mainly because I didn't want to give him the satisfaction. But that changed when he unexpectedly messaged me on Facebook. Yup, out of the blue. Here's what he said, copy pasted, minus the spelling errors. Hey man, I didn't know she was married at first. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. She told me you were separated. I feel like a fool. At first, I thought it was a trap. Maybe Jenna put him up to it. But I played along and replied, and when you did find out she was married? He didn't respond for 2 days. Then he unloaded a novel. Turns out Jenna had fed him a complete fantasy that we were living separately but under the same roof, that I was abusive and she was trying to save money before leaving, that she had no intimacy in her marriage and was dead inside. He admitted he believed it for a while, but over time, things didn't add up. She said she was working late but would stay over at his apartment. She said she had no money, yet showed up with designer purses and expensive perfumes. She claimed she was done with me, yet always seemed on edge, afraid I'd find out. Danny said the guilt started eating at him. But when I served her papers, Jenna told him I was trying to ruin her life and begged him to stay loyal. His words, "Man, I'm sorry. I should have known better. I cut things off with her last week. She showed up at my door, crying and screaming. I told her we were done." Oh, but it gets better. He also sent me screenshots of her blowing up his phone, voicemails, texts, long rants about how he betrayed her and ruined her last chance at love. One text said, "You were supposed to help me start over, not throw me away like trash." Buddy, that's your soulmate? Danny even offered to write a statement or testify if needed. I declined. I wasn't going to drag this through court unless she contested the divorce, which, to my lawyer's shock, she didn't, probably because she had no leg to stand on. After Danny ghosted her, Jenna tried reaching out to me again, first with "I'm in therapy now" texts, then with "I'm broken without you" emails. Then the classic, "I made a mistake, but you're making it worse by being so cold." I didn't reply to a single one. Danny turning on her broke whatever illusion she had. Her affair fantasy collapsed. She lost the guy she cheated for and the husband she betrayed. All she had left was her reflection, and apparently she couldn't stand it. And if you thought things couldn't get more ridiculous, buckle in. After Danny cut her off and I ghosted every one of her emotional manipulations, Jenna finally accepted, sort of, that our marriage was dead. My lawyer got word from hers that she was ready to move out peacefully. She had 10 days to grab her things. I took the day off work, not because I wanted to see her, but because I didn't trust her alone in the house. My brother came too, just in case she got dramatic. Spoiler, she did. She showed up looking like she hadn't slept in days. Dark circles, sunglasses even though it was cloudy, and in some sad attempt to make me jealous, she brought a friend. No, not Danny. Another guy. Some mid-20s tattooed dude who looked like he played bass in a garage band and slept in his van. She introduced him as Braden. Braden. Seriously. She tried to play it cool at first, acting like we were just moving into new chapters. But as she boxed up her clothes, she couldn't help herself. "You didn't even fight for me. Like I made a mistake, but you just gave up." I stayed silent. I didn't owe her a single syllable. Then she found a framed photo of us from a trip to Italy. She held it up and said, "You remember this? I was so happy then. Why didn't you try to make me happy again?" My brother scoffed from across the room and muttered, "Maybe don't bang your Uber driver next time." Braden laughed. Jenna flipped out, started shouting, throwing clothes in bags like a maniac. She accused me of ruining her mental health, said I emasculated her in the marriage, and that men like me don't know how to love. I told her calmly, "If you wanted love, you wouldn't have gone looking for it in the back seat of a Toyota Prius." Then came the twist. As she was loading her things into Braden's rusty pickup, my neighbor came over. Sweet lady named Carla, probably in her 60s. She looked at Jenna and said, "Is that the same guy who was here last month? I thought he drove a black car." Jenna froze. Braden looked confused. And I just smiled. She stormed off without another word, slammed the tailgate shut, sped off like she was in Fast and Furious Delusional Edition. That was the last time I saw her in person. After Jenna's hysterical final meltdown and move out with Braden the bassist, I was finally alone. For real. The house was quiet. No lying, no accusations, no perfume masking a guilty conscience, just silence. And you know what? It was weirdly depressing at first. I expected to feel triumphant, like the hero walking away from an explosion in slow-mo. But instead, I felt hollow, Like everything I'd believed in, love, marriage, loyalty, had been dragged into a back alley and mugged. The worst part, I started blaming myself. Maybe I worked too much. Maybe I didn't compliment her enough. Maybe I missed signs early on. But then I remembered all the times I did try vacations, date nights, buying her that stupid lemon tree she had to have, listening to her rants about work, family, horoscopes, all of it. I showed up. I was there. She wasn't. So I gave myself permission to feel everything: the anger, the grief, the weird, intrusive fantasies of what if she comes back and begs me to forgive her. Spoiler, she tried. More on that in the next part. I started small, took her name off the utility bills, rearranged furniture, deleted every photo of her from my phone, started sleeping in the middle of the bed. I joined a gym, not to get revenge hot, but just to do something for me. My friends started inviting me out again. At first, I declined, but one night I said yes. We hit a bar. I had a beer, then another, then ended up talking to a woman who, get this, drove Uber part time. I almost spit out my drink. We both laughed when I told her the story. She said, "Well, I promise not to ruin your life in the backseat of my car." It was the first real laugh I'd had in weeks. No, we didn't hook up. I wasn't ready for that. But it reminded me, life keeps going. Even after betrayal, even after you watch the person you loved most become a stranger in your driveway, loading boxes with a guy named Braden, I was still standing. I was healing. Slowly, painfully, but healing. And yep, just when I thought it was all behind me, Jenna popped back into my life like a cockroach that survived a nuclear blast. It had been almost 2 months since the Braden move out meltdown. I'd been doing better: gym, good meals, therapy, real sleep. I was even thinking about dating again. I felt free. Then she texted, "Hey, can we talk?" No hi, no context. Just that. My gut twisted, but curiosity got the best of me. I replied, "What do you want, Jenna?" She said she just wanted to clear the air and maybe meet for coffee. I agreed, not to reconcile, but because I needed closure, and I wanted to see what kind of performance she had rehearsed. We met at a neutral place, a quiet cafe near a park. She showed up looking completely different. Hair dyed black, barely any makeup, wearing some loose, earthy outfit like she was trying to reinvent herself as a yoga teacher or something. She started with crocodile tears. I made a mistake. I didn't know what I was doing. Danny manipulated me. I didn't even like him that much. I just sat there, watching her. You were always the love of my life. I was just lost. I felt invisible. And then the twist I should have seen coming. I'm in therapy now, and I've been thinking maybe we could try again. Maybe we could go to couples therapy, start fresh. I nearly choked on my coffee. This woman set our marriage on fire, publicly humiliated me, gaslit me, cheated with a man who literally drove her around like an emotional Uber elevator, and now she wanted to start fresh? No apology for the lies, no remorse for the emotional damage. Just start fresh. I told her firmly, "There's no fresh start after betrayal like that. I gave you my loyalty. You sold it for a few late night rides and backseat hookups. I'm done." Her face twisted instantly, from tearful to furious. "You think you're better than me? You'll never find someone like me again." I said, "I hope to God I don't." She stormed out. Again. That was the last time I saw her, for real this time. And I wish I could say the story ended with that cafe ambush. But nope. Jenna had one more surprise tucked in the sleeve of her boho cardigan. So divorce. It went through, clean and sharp. We had no kids, no shared property outside the house, which I kept, and she didn't even try to fight for anything. Probably because she knew any judge would laugh her out of the courtroom after the evidence of her Uber affair. I felt relieved. Like the air around me was lighter. I didn't realize how much of myself I'd given up to manage her chaos. I signed the final papers, cracked open a decent bottle of whiskey with my brother, and toasted to freedom. But exactly 5 days later, I kid you not, I got a message request on Instagram from a burner account. It was Jenna. Username at seekingclosure88. The irony of closure wasn't lost on me. The message: "I miss what we had. You know it was real. We were meant to build a family together. I'm ready now." I didn't respond. The next day, another message. This time with a photo, her in lingerie. From our honeymoon. Caption: "Remember this night? You said you'd never leave me." Unreal. I finally replied, "I left the moment you left our marriage. Don't contact me again." Blocked. everywhere. Instagram, email, her number. Even blocked her Venmo just in case she tried to accidentally send $1 with a message. And that was the last I heard from her. I'd love to say I was angry or bitter, but honestly, I just felt sad. Not for me, for her. She'd become a hollow version of the woman I married, all performance, no soul. And maybe she always was. Maybe I just didn't want to see it. After the final weird lingerie message and a full sweep of blocking Jenna from every corner of my digital life, I finally got to start over. And surprisingly, that's when good things started happening. I don't mean I won the lottery or anything dramatic like that, but for the first time in years, I was waking up without anxiety twisting in my stomach. No checking texts with dread, no wondering if I was losing my mind. Just clarity. I joined a hiking group. Sounds simple, right? But that first hike, surrounded by strangers and mountain air, was the first time I breathed deeply in what felt like forever. I met people who didn't know me as Jenna's husband, or that guy whose wife cheated in the back of a Prius. They just knew me as me. And one of them, a woman named Tess. She was funny, sharp, confident in a way that didn't come off as fake or overcompensating. She didn't walk on eggshells, and when I mentioned carefully that I was recently divorced, her response was, sounds like you escaped something toxic. Good for you. No judgment, no pity, just matter of fact support. We started talking more after hikes. Coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into binge watching true crime documentaries and arguing over whether the husband always did it. She says yes. I say usually. And no, before anyone jumps to conclusions, Tess and I didn't rush into anything. I was honest about where I was emotionally, and she respected it. But here's the wildest part. One night we were out with mutual friends, and she casually said, you seem like someone who survived a hurricane, but you didn't just survive, you rebuilt. That hit me because I had survived. I went through betrayal, gaslighting, public humiliation, legal battles, and emotional roller coasters. And here I was, laughing, talking, living. I hadn't just moved on from Jenna. I had rediscovered who I actually was, and damn, I liked that guy. Teen, and trust me, I wasn't expecting this either. Just when I thought the entire chapter with Jenna and her car ride Romeo was officially over, guess who slides into my inbox? Danny. Yeah, that Danny. At first, I thought it was a scam. His message popped up on Facebook, which I rarely use now, and the profile pic was him. Same dumb sunglasses, same smug face I'd last seen through a fogged up windshield. Here's what his message said. Hey man, I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from, but I need to say something. I didn't know she was married when it started. I swear. I rolled my eyes. Classic move, pretend to be the clueless third party. But I kept reading. She told me you were separated, that you were cold and distant and didn't love her anymore. She said you were emotionally abusive and cheated on her years ago. I believed her. Um, I almost laughed. Not because any of it was funny, but because it sounded exactly like the kind of fantasy Jenna would spin. Danny went on. She used me, man. She was constantly lying, gaslighting me, even turned violent once. After she moved in, it was hell. She drained my savings, like got in fights with my family, even keyed my car during a fight and blamed a neighbor. He said she'd moved out of his place 3 weeks ago after a screaming match that ended with him calling the cops on her. She told them he had assaulted her, but his security camera footage said otherwise. I'm not asking for forgiveness, just wanted you to know I get it now. She's not who she pretends to be. I learned it the hard way. I didn't reply. Honestly, I didn't feel anger toward Danny anymore. Pity, maybe. The guy made his bed, and Jenna set fire to it while he was still sleeping in it. But I'll admit, hearing how she turned on him, how she wrecked his life the way she tried to wreck mine, it gave me a strange kind of closure. She wasn't just a bad wife. She was a walking disaster, and I had finally escaped her orbit. I didn't think writing all this out would take me this far emotionally, but it has. So, where am I now? Honestly, I'm at peace. Real peace. Not the kind where you're just numbly existing and telling yourself you're fine. The kind where you wake up, stretch, and actually look forward to the day ahead. After Danny's message, something clicked into place for me. I didn't feel the need to obsess or analyze the past anymore. Jenna was who she was. She'd scorched everything she touched, not just my life, but his, and probably others before us, and she'd keep doing it too. I didn't need to carry any of it anymore. I stopped checking her socials. I stopped replaying old arguments. I stopped asking myself what I could have done differently. Because truth is, I wasn't the problem. And it wasn't my job to fix broken people who didn't want to change. Tess and I, still taking things slow, but it's steady. She's been incredibly respectful of my healing process. We don't talk about Jenna much anymore. She doesn't pry, and I don't vent. We're building our thing, and it feels healthy, grown up, honest. One of the biggest changes, I started journaling. Yeah, sounds cheesy, but writing out everything I was holding in helped more than any drink, distraction, or advice ever could. I've even started mentoring a guy from my hiking group who went through something similar. It's crazy how many people are stuck in toxic relationships, quietly suffering because they're too scared to walk away. I get it. I was that guy. But now I've got a new home, a new perspective, and a future that finally feels mine. I even rescued a dog. Her name is Nova. She's loud, needy, and a total goofball, but she's the best damn roommate I've ever had. The final part. If you followed along this far, thank you. Writing this has been more therapeutic than I ever expected, and I've heard from so many of you privately who are going through something similar. So I want to close with the advice I wish someone had given me before it all went down. One, if something feels off, trust your gut. I ignored red flags for months, excuses, changes in routine, emotional distance. I told myself I was paranoid. I wasn't. Intuition is your survival tool. Don't silence it just to avoid conflict. Two, don't lose yourself trying to fix someone. I spent years making excuses for Jenna's behavior, trying to love her harder, work more, be more patient. The truth is, you can't fix someone who doesn't want to grow, and it's not your job to set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. Three, cheating is a choice, not a mistake. People don't accidentally fall into affairs. They make one selfish decision after another until they're deep in betrayal. Don't let anyone gaslight you into believing it was just a moment of weakness. Four, document everything during a breakup or divorce. I got lucky in court, but that was because I started saving texts, screenshots, emails, everything. When things get messy, and they will, having a paper trail will save your sanity and protect your rights. Five, healing isn't linear, but it is possible. There were days I felt like I'd never laugh again. Nights I stared at the ceiling asking how I got here. But time, therapy, community, and self respect rebuilt me. Not overnight, but step by step. Six, don't be afraid to start over. It's terrifying. Walking away from a life you built, even if it was rotten at the core, feels like failure. But it's actually a rebirth. You get to rebuild on your terms, and that's powerful. Now, I'm not the man I was a year ago. I'm better, wiser, stronger, more self aware, and weirdly grateful. Not for what Jenna did, screw that, but for what it forced me to become. If you're in a toxic relationship right now, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I will say this: you deserve peace, you deserve honesty, you deserve love that doesn't come with lies, manipulation, or betrayal. Thanks for reading Reddit. Stay strong. OP.